Alright you guys, Stoopzz back again with another video, and today I will be going over macros. The most important and essential macros inside World of Warcraft Arena. I think these macros are important for any class across the board, whether you're a healer or a DPS, to kind of include in your toolkit. Shout out to my boy Talal, who's been asking me for this guide on the daily. Thank you so much for reminding me. I know it's a very important guide to some of you, and whether this is kind of basic information or essential information for most of you out there, I think just a refresher on why they are important is very, very crucial for your success inside the World of Warcraft Arena. I want to give a shout out to my Strawberry Squad fam here on Tychondrius. This is a guild led by my boy Chi Breezy. We are doing our first night hold. It's going to be my first raid, I think, of the entire expansion. So if you are on US Horde and you want to join us in this raid, or you're on Tychondrius Horde and you want to join the guild, be sure to let me know in the comment section below and I'll get you an invite right away. So in this guide, we are going to be going over a few things. The first portion of the guide, I'll just be going over macros in general, why they are important, which macros I think are the most essential, and then how they can almost be detrimental to your success as well as your mechanics as a whole. Following that, I'll just be going over the macros themselves, the script for these macros. I'm going to be discussing where you should kind of keybind them, and then I'll show you how to use them, and with that, I think you'll get an idea of why they are so important. Now for me, macros, you guys, are important because they eliminate two-step processes, right? They might, eliminate you having to target somebody, having to re-click somebody, having to use your mouse cursor or even a key binding to target them and then activate another spell. You can see here on this character, I don't have that many macros at all. I personally don't use macros to like stuff 8 or 12 spells in one little script so I can activate 7 or 6 things so I don't have to press that many key bindings. In my opinion, that's almost detrimental to your mechanics, and sometimes those things don't go well. If you try and stuff like 4 or 5 or 6 spells in there as an enhancement shaman so you don't have to press different abilities, sometimes they don't go off. Maybe you try to press something after you press the macro and you interrupt the script. Sometimes you're like, wait, why did my bloodlust not go off? I really don't think macros in that way are really useful. I think the most important and the most useful when you try to eliminate a two-step process, being that, let's say I have to target this guy and dispel him, but I'm already targeting this guy. So that means I'd have to target my ally, then I'd have to press my key binding for dispel, and then retarget the enemy or retarget myself. It just eliminates those types of scenarios so I can just press one button while targeting, the enemy or myself and dispelling my ally, and that's where I find them to be the most useful. So again, I'm trying to keep this guide very simple. There are other macros like cancel aura macros that are very important in situations with like mages that have spell steal. I might leave some out, but I'm trying to keep this guide concise, easy to use, and easy to understand. And once you implement these macros, feel free to adjust or add any other macros based on your class or the comp that you're facing. Now in the past, a lot of people have said, I don't need macros to target my enemies as a healer. I disagree. I think there are situations where you want to target your enemies, and having to click over here, in my opinion, is really slow. I don't like tab targeting unless I'm trying to tab target a pet. So for me, I have AS&D bound, but I've combined my targeting and my Rising Sun Kick macro in one macro so that I can target somebody and kick them at the same time. But since it is a melee spell, if I'm not in range, it'll just target them. So why is this macro useful? Well, for a lot of classes or healers, they have melee oriented spells. Wave the Crane is based on your ability to easily attack your enemies. Melee Wings for a Paladin and Avenging Crusader is also based on your Judgment and Crusader spam, so I want to be able to target somebody and hit them at the same time rather than having to target them and then start activating other spells. Again, that's ease of use. It's combining 2 sequences into one, and it does reduce the amount of time I'm spending pressing my keys. So let me go over this. So I have AS and D. A is enemy 1, S is enemy 2, and D is enemy 3. I have 2 enemies here, so if I'm not in range right now, I can press A, it's going to target the Druid. If I press S, it's going to target the Mistweaver Monk, and I can rotate between these guys. You can see here it's saying out of range, because I'm not in range right now to use my Rising Sun Kick ability. So I can rotate through these guys. If I'm out of range, I can come over here and just keep switching targets. But if I were to get close to the Druid, you see I'm targeting the Monk right now. If I'm close to the Druid and I press A, it's going to switch targets and it's going to kick this guy. This is really nice for my Rising Sun Kick ability to reset my Thunder Focus Tea if I was using the talent Rising Thunder, which is great for Wave the Crane. This is good if you're a Holy Paladin, you have Crusader Strike. I prefer to use it as Judgment on my Holy Paladin so I can rotate between the guys, and I can continuously rotate through my enemies and just keep kicking them as I run by them. So this is great, and you can see that he's cowering in fear here, but if I'm at a range, it simply targets the Druid or it targets the Monk. But if I'm next to him, it's going to kick him. And that is all done with the macro that once again I'll show on the screen here. So again, this macro can be used for any healer. Let's say you're playing a Resto Shaman. I like to use the same macro for a Resto Shaman. I just replaced the Rising Sun kick with Flame Shock. I like to use Flame Shock because it's going to proc my Lava Burst. I can spread my Flame Shocks really easily. Now this leads me to my next macro, and I know a lot of you are going to say, well, what if I have a ranged spell, right? You talked about Judgment as a Holy Paladin, Flame Shock as a Resto Shaman. What if I target him, but it's a ranged spell? Then it's going to activate the spell, so now I don't have anything to target them with. It's going to use my spell every single time. Well, the only times that you would ever target an enemy as a healer in arena is 1 to CC or do damage. There's no reason you would target them otherwise. You're not gonna just target him and just stare at him and jump in circles. You're gonna target him to do damage or CC. So with that being said, then I must make sure that I have an individual CC macro. Now this one is really important for any class. DPS, if you're a mage, you need to have this for Polymorph. As a warlock, you need to have this for Fear. As a druid, you need to have this for Cyclone. Doesn't matter what the class is, if you have a spammable CC or an off cooldown CC, you need to have these bound for each arena enemy inside the 3v3 or 2v2 bracket. So as a monk, I'll display mine on the screen here on the right somewhere or in the middle of the screen. I have one for paralysis. Okay, so I have 3 paralysis macros, and you can see here that's Alt A, Alt S, and Alt D. Now remember, my targeting for 1, 2, 3, enemy 1, 2, 3 was A, S, and D, right? Now it's so simple for me to remember. If I want to target them, I press A. If I want to CC him, I press Alt A. Now it could be Shift A for you, Control A for others. It can be a bunch of different things, and I know there's modifier macros out there, but I don't like modifier macros. It makes it very, very like clunky, I feel like, and a lot of times the script messes up, so I like to keep things simple and separate. But again, it's Alt A, Alt S, and Alt D. So let's say I want to walk over to, let's say I'm targeting this druid right here, right? I can run over, kick the druid, and then press Alt S and CC the off monk, and I've never distargeted the druid enemy. I can CC one guy, hit the other by targeting one guy and not the other, and just do some cross CC and damage with only pressing 2 abilities versus 4 or 5 if you were using no macros at all and you have to click your enemies. It's so much slower. So again, I can simply walk over to the druid, kick him, and then CC the monk, and that's 2 keys. There are so many great situations that you can use this macro. So if I am a warlock, right, and I'm dotting one target, and then the healer starts running out from behind the pillar, I can be doing damage to this guy, and then just CC Fear or do anything to the healer, and then continue my damage, and I didn't have to distarget anything. So it's very, very important. If you do not have this macro, I really, really recommend you take the necessary time to get used to it, to get comfortable with it. It seems a little difficult at first, but it's so much easier. I've seen so many players that don't use macros like this, and their skill level just goes from 1500 easily 1900 2k. Now the last macro I'm going to touch on in this guide is the Dispel, Detox, Purify, Spirit, Cleanse macro. You need to have this one. So there's going to be situations where I'm doing damage or I'm healing myself and my Feral Druid's getting CC'd. I want to have something so I can easily dispel him while targeting. You can see that I dispelled him and I'm not even targeting him. I'm targeting the druid. Let's say I'm targeting the monk and I'm doing damage to the monk, right? And I need to continue doing damage, but my feral druid's getting feared. Then all I gotta do is press one button and it will dispel him without even having to target him. And I have this for allies 1 and 2 inside the arena. And then for myself, it's just my basic key binding. And if you're wondering what my keys are for this, it's just the second row on my G600 mouse. Now you don't need this mouse. They have a Razor Naga, which is very similar. If you have a regular mouse, you can make it work just fine. 3 key bindings that you can use for ally 1, 2, and then yourself for dispel, and then you just make it party specific. And it's just a very simple macro. It's just hashtag show tooltip detox. That just means you go over the macro, it'll show the description of the ability, and then /cast bracket target equal party 1 bracket detox, and there's spaces between that, and I'll put that on the screen. You can go over that macro yourself. You can find it on Google. It's really, really simple. Now when I first started out, this was really overwhelming. I got always super confused. There were so many buttons all over the place, and I had 3 buttons to target my allies, and I just got over clicking my raid frame. So I was like, okay, now I have to use these 3 to target them, but now how do I dispel them? It was too overwhelming. So what I did starting out was I just used the same buttons to target them, so my back 3 row, and then I would just add the Alt key to dispel. So if I wanted to dispel them, I would just press Alt, and then the same button to target them would be to dispel them. So I'd add Alt to that. So you can see here I'm running in on the druid. I might run over and kick him, and I can press 1 button to dispel my ally. I can switch over and start healing him before he dies to that full moon. It's just super simple, you guys. I'm not having to press anything over here or over here. It makes things very, very efficient to do damage and to heal. And if I want to stop this druid from doing more things, I can just CC him with my CC macro while targeting my ally. It's very, very, very efficient, you guys. So again, you guys, these macros are really simple and easy to use. It might take you a little time getting used to them, but I would take the time to get over that learning curve throughout the season so you can see some major increases on your skill level. But that's gonna do for this video, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. If you have any more questions regarding these macros, you can leave in the comment section below and I'll get back to you guys right away. Try not to miss me on my YouTube live stream where I answer all of your guys' questions in depth. Don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you guys next time.